Hey, what's up?
Hello, hello.
Hey, so this is David. David, you want to give you a quick intro about yourself?
So I'm David. As Sean has said, I currently work as a software engineer, currently based in Hong Kong. I'm also doing a part-time master's in computer science at Stanford University.
Yeah, welcome. Thanks, David. Where are we now?
We are in San Francisco at Stripe Sessions.
Yeah, very exciting stuff. And we just met another YouTuber called Jay Hoovy. Check out his channel down there with the link. Today I'm very happy to be hosting this episode with David. David is a great friend since, I don't know, like we met each other in 2020 or something.
Yeah, sometime
Yeah, back
back.
then, like in the middle of COVID. And then David is working in quant trading as well as a computer science student at Stanford. And we've been talking a lot about like startup ideas and stuff. So I just really want to like give you guys like a showcase of how we talk to each other. But yeah, so David, like I'm just curious. So how do you feel about currently working in like three main things at the same time, like being a quant trader and a CS student as well as a startup founder?
Right. I think it's definitely very challenging. I will probably place the startup founder part as my smallest priority currently, just because of all the commitments I have to work. Also, school is also a thing I'm trying to get through and hopefully extract some value from that with all the AI courses and content that I'm learning. So eventually, I do want to do whether it's like a startup or at my current job to apply some like machine learning methods into my job to either like improve the workflow or create a startup that might benefit society. I'm still like thinking about that currently.
Yeah, that's very
Uh,
exciting. I think before we jump into like startup world, I was just really curious because you started your master's degree at Stanford while you were still working full time, right? Like, how do you
mm.
think about like studying and working at the same time? Like, what persuaded you to apply to school and then study part time meanwhile?
Right. So part of that was just because I felt like there was a gap in my computer science education, and I was always interested in learning more on in the field of artificial intelligence. And so it was like back then it was a decision between working and studying. But I realized that it is possible to study part time at Stanford, and Stanford has a really flexible Masters of Science and Computer Science. Essentially, I've been taking a lot of gap quarters when I need to, and I could just enroll in one course at a time, which was very helpful for people who kind of want to get the industry experience while working in, say, a quant trading firm or somewhere else, and just want to supplement their like industry knowledge with some field or expertise that they want to grasp.
What courses did you pick and why?
Right. So right now I am doing my last course at Stanford. I'm taking computer vision, and I mean there's a very numerous reasons why I really want to take computer vision. Well, part of it was just because okay, in order to graduate, I need to take a certain number of AI courses, and secondly, I think it's a very like rapidly growing field. Sure, computer vision has very matured in markets like autonomous driving. We have multiple object detection methods which are state of the art and perform very well. But there are still many applications of computer vision that still needs to be done to improve, say, people's lives elsewhere. For example, so far we have like very good models for detecting which trash that goes into the garbage can should be recycled or not, or compost. So a problem with that is like, how do we efficiently deploy that and test that in garbage cans or different recycling plants? Or how do we use satellite images to detect which areas in Africa or third world countries have poverty, right? So these are areas that aren't really explored in terms of the application space, but the existing models are really mature enough for us to get good results by applying these various problems.
Is this one of your current course project or your personal project?
Yeah, so for the course project, we're actually competing in an competition hosted by the University of Malawi in Africa, which the goal is to detect building structures and houses like based on the material. So I think that has applications beyond just houses. Like in the end, if we know, okay, what are the suitable models, what are the really nice hyperparameters and like layers of architecture that we tweak that works very well for these houses, we can maybe apply that to certain other problems, such as detecting cars on the ground, or even like detecting, ships. So there's like different applications from, predicting the economy and also to military even. So
Hmm.
there's like a lot of applications that's not yet explored in the field of computer vision.
Interesting. Like, are
Yeah.
these kind of opportunities very common at Stanford? Like, you can just work together with a completely different country and just implement whatever you're building to that actual use case.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it as not that there like whether there's opportunity, but like nobody's stopping you, right? Sometimes opportunities are found rather than are created rather than found, right? So if you think, okay, well, this country doesn't have this solution to predict which areas need more funding and which areas are more poverty stricken, so then having that allows you to tell like different nations like, hey, this area might have lack to access like water, right? So I think that's also very helpful. Yeah.
Interesting. Like, do you guys have any, I don't know, a team working on this together, or are you doing this by yourself, or?
Right. Yeah. So we currently have a team of 3 people, including me,
Mm,
and we're trying to say get top 10 or top 20 in the competition. At least
nice.
that's our goal. We'll see. We're thinking of like leveraging some of the state of the art models, like segment anything from Meta AI, exploring some like fine tuning with different res nets that are pre-trained models. So I think we have some ideas, and we will implement them and see how it goes.
Hmm.
Yeah.
How did you form the team? Like, do you know these people beforehand, or did you meet in the class?
Yeah, we actually, I think in the class there's like a forum for team matching.
Mm,
So for them, it was just like many people are interested in different problems, and the good thing about Stanford's Masters in Computer Science, or like computer science courses in general, is that the classroom is super diverse. You have anyone, you have like anyone from like undergrads to PhDs who have published like papers in computer vision, and all of them are taking the class somehow.
mm.
And you have, and to be like, what's surprising is that more than half the class didn't actually major in computer science.
Oh
You
wow.
have people who studied biomedical field. You have people who studied law who are taking this class, and then who are thinking of applying it to kind of their use cases in their industry. So, and I think like somewhere around 20 to 30% of the class has the same background as me, which are like they're actually working full time while taking the class part time. So it's there's like a very diverse student body, and lots of ideas are being thrown around, and people are trying to see how to use computer vision to help their
Smart.
specific industry.
And in history or currently, do you see like any really promising teams, or like already teams who formed a startup right after the class, like out of these kind of community forming sort of environment?
Yeah, so I there are some community forming environments like maybe outside of the classroom. I know there has been this GSB and CS mixer where in the last year where there was 25 students from Stanford's GSB's MBA program, and then there's like 25 CS students, and then they just network, and then like talk about ideas, talk about implementation, and then some of them become startups. And there's also another class at Stanford that's called the Lean Launchpad. So that course is actually very competitive to get in. You have to submit. There's like probably like hundreds, 100+ students applying, and they accept maybe around 12 teams to that class. And throughout that class, they will guide you on how do you talk to customers, how do you talk to investors, and pitch. And so, yeah, I think out of that class, there were some successful startups that made it to Y Combinator, as well as other incubators.
Do you have
So, yeah.
examples? Like, do you remember their names?
No, because I never
Okay,
take the
okay.
class. Yeah.
Let's look it up later.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm just really curious because, like, when I was watching some other Stanford CS students, like some YouTubers talking about the course and the environment, some people say like this it's a really competitive environment, and then it becomes an environment where like a lot of people are like probably feeling this FOMO kind of feeling, like fear of missing out. So they feel like, oh, I have to learn computer science, otherwise, I don't know, how do I find a job? Or everyone seems to be doing a startup, which is cool, and so I should learn computer science. Would you agree with this kind of comment, or do you think like it's actually more diverse than these kind of stereotypes?
I would think that definitely it's more diverse in that there are people who, take computer science for different reasons, right? Like whether you're really interested in fundamental problems in, say, computer science theory, in I don't know, different areas like compilers or networking or AI, and then you're purely in it for the research, right? And then there's other people who believe that okay, computer science is a useful tool that everyone should know because it's going to help them increase their efficiency at their job. Um, and of course, it's like there's a cool factor there as well. So yeah, it is very competitive. I agree, and they're competitive for different reasons because there's a lot of people who are trying to do cutting edge computer science research, as well as people who are just trying to learn the fundamentals so they can be more efficient at jobs.
Do you feel like being taught on how to talk to investors, how to build teams actually works? Because I personally have, when I was at MIT, I personally attended some classes there, also at HBS, at Harvard Business School, like people were teaching entrepreneurship. Okay, here's how you like form this initial idea and build this MVP, user focused. When you pitch to investors, how do you prepare a presentation, stuff like that. But I don't really see a lot of like, I mean, of course, building startups is hard, but eventually a classroom to me wasn't as helpful as just putting yourself into the water and actually just get your hands dirty. But a lot of times, like I feel like in school for these kind of entrepreneurship classes, perhaps like there's a couple of professors who are like very experienced. They're already doing private equities because they made a bunch of money, or they were previous founders. They were sharing these experiences and then trying to theoreticalize like how you do these things. But eventually, do you feel like there's something missing in these classes? And then perhaps like how do you feel about if someone who's like actually entrepreneurship oriented, how would they benefit the most from these classes?
Right. So I haven't taken any entrepreneurial classes, but I think that nothing beats getting yourself dirty in the water, right? So I think like getting your hands wet with like different try creating a startup, trying to like pitch to VCs. I mean, I think that is probably the best learning tool. I do think that business school has its merits in that it is teaching you different cases, right? Like when you're talking about like business cases, like why did this startup like succeed or die? I think that experience is also helpful for many startups, right? So it's like they try to make you live through that startup's experience from 0 to 1 and teach you these lessons. Whereas which could be considered more efficient than you trying it out yourself, so that you might make fewer mistakes when you're actually trying to grow your startup.
Well, switching gears a little bit. So when you were still full time, just doing the job at Citadel, like how did you apply? Like, what did you prepare to apply?
Right. So that part is kind of okay. So to be honest, when I didn't really when I like a few months before, or I would say like 1 month before I applied to Citadel Securities, I didn't know what Citadel was. I had a few friends who told me, "Hey, you should apply to these like trading firms. They might be interesting because you kind of like math, you kind of like dealing with numbers and finance, and you also want to do an engineering job." So then I thought, okay, cool, let me look into it. And then I didn't really use any referrals. There weren't any headhunters. I just applied on the website. I didn't expect that I would get an interview or get in because, well, I already had some other like tech firms offers that I was already planning to go.
Where did you apply?
Sorry.
What other tech firms offers did you have?
Right. So I had offers from Microsoft. I was interviewing at some other startups, and I had offer from from Uber. Sorry, and then
Oops.
yeah, yeah. So let me read it. Yeah, I had return offers from Microsoft and Uber. I was applying to other startups,
Yeah.
some of which are pending acquisition by Salesforce and other large companies. Yeah, so I knew that I was gonna get a few other offers, and then so I came into the interview with a very relatively peaceful state of mind without being that stressed. And it turns out I really liked the problems that I was given in the interview process. The algorithms and the algorithmic problems are very challenging actually, and but also interesting. I would say that that interview process was probably one of the hardest I've done. Yeah.
Can you give me like a couple examples of what you were asked by Citadel for those tech interviews?
Let me think about this. Yeah, so one of the questions that was asked was it has something to do with how do you efficiently load from memory to cache, and then there was a question that I didn't expect would become mathematical, but in the end it required me to find, oh, there's a pattern with how you can approach this problem. And then, I had to derive some kind of simple formula and then realize, oh, if we make different jumps in the array of like a square root times the length, then, you get some kind of performance optimization. So, I thought that question was interesting, but it's been a while since I did the interview.
Oh yeah, no problem. The tech interviews from quant trading firms and the tech firms, how much difference do you see between them? A lot of the tech interviews, they're not directly related to the business. They're probably just trying to filter a bunch of people because there are too many demand out there in the market. Do you feel like either one might be more difficult than the other ones?
Right. So I think this also varies from company to company. Like for example, there are many tech firms that will ask you questions off leak code. There are also, companies like Stripe, which might ask new grads like to implement an API according to some spec within like an hour in the interview. Right. So I think they're all very different. I would say that in trading firms, a lot of these problems are, they will be kind of algorithmic like what you will see in tech companies. You could get some questions that are very specific to the nature of the technology that you're working with. For example, if the role is very C++ focused or Python focused, there might be questions related to that. Whereas in tech companies, depending on the role you're interviewing, usually it will be more language agnostic. So there are also areas like more applications might be asked in different trading firms. They might try to, base the question off a particular use case, particular problem that you need to solve. For example, like how do you build a stock exchange? That might be a question that might appear in a quant trading firm, but might not appear in a pure tech company. Yeah.
Cool. Was the job intense, like overall, and how did you feel about, while you were working, how do you prepare for applying to school?
Right. So I think the application to school part, it is a lot of work, but the school itself is also a lot of work, right? So I think on a relative standpoint, I think applying to schools is not that big of an effort. I did do some GRE prep, and I took the GRE. I got a greater score than what I had expected, so that was great. And that was before I started my job. So I knew that I was going to apply to grad school before I started at Citadel. And after that, it was a matter of, how do you maintain close contact with people from your undergrad? How do you maintain like close contact with the professors you work closely with your intern managers and so on? So back then, Stanford's MSCS program accepted between 3 to 6 reference letters, and I was able to obtain 2 of them from previous faculty at my undergrad in UBC, and also 2 more references from my previous intern managers at Uber and Microsoft. So I think that provided a good balance, and they were all very strong recommendations, and that was I think a key of what helped me get into the program. But yeah, I think the rest of that, once you get in, it's the you do have to do a lot of work to essentially graduate.
Do you see a lot of other colleagues of yours who are doing part-time masters as well? Is this a very unique situation for you?
Yeah, I think at companies like Google, where maybe you're close to Stanford, and maybe they do have this kind of 80-20 culture where 80% of the time you are working and 20% of the time you could spend on developing some areas of personal growth related to your career. So with that model, these tech firms, you have like part-time students taking like 2 courses per quarter. At some other firms, like for example at Citadel, it's very tough to do 2 courses per quarter. Usually I do 1 or 0, and I know some, very few colleagues, but there are 1 or 2 who are also studying part time, and for them it's been a challenge too because you do have to dedicate a lot of time on the weekends and after work to basically grind and finish the coursework. Yeah, so I think it's doable. I just think there's a lot of time commitment, and you definitely have to sacrifice other things you have in life. Yeah.
Cool, cool. Sounds good. A few quick questions. What do you do for fun?
Right. So that's a very tough question. So I think being based in Hong Kong, it is great in that everything is convenient and it's very easy to go to different places. For me to, try out different things like local cuisine is very easy. Go downstairs, take a few steps. Transportation is very convenient in Hong Kong. I know I could probably talk about our life in Hong Kong for a few hours. Also, from my office to from my home to go to the airport, it will be under 45 minutes. So and the airport is super efficient. So in case you want to do a weekend trip, it is actually very possible to do that. So I think traveling, exploring new cultures is something that I like to do for fun. Learning languages, I've been doing that for a bit. I've been learning a bit of Spanish and recently a bit of Japanese. So yeah.
You want to say something in Espanol and Nihongo?
Oh, mi español. No, es que no. Mi español es muy malo. No puedo. No.
日本語は日本語は上手ですか上手。
日本語は下手です。Yeah, wait, is that how you say? No, 下手。私の日本語は下手です。
下手は何
What?
下手は何
下手は何? No, wait, is it like bad?
What is 下手
I thought it's bad.
Bad. Oh,
How do you say like
maybe.
bad?
I don't know.
Because it's the opposite of Jozu. Anyway.
Yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe you're right.
Yeah, I haven't been practicing for a while, so I need to get back into it.
Okay. Okay, let's
Yeah, I've been practicing a bit of French, but I already knew French, but I was just
Okay.
finding out.
Yeah. So in terms of startups, because you mentioned that you're currently focusing on your studies as well as the job at Citadel. Once you got maybe more time to think about your own adventures in the future, what do you think? What fields do you think would bring most of the conviction for you in order to pursue something long term? Do you have, I don't know, maybe your top 3 topics that you might be mostly interested in?
Right, so I am still kind of exploring. I think very likely I will stay in the current industry I work in, maybe technology for quant trading. I think there's a lot of interesting areas there to apply. For example, whether you could use AI or NLP to extract trading alpha from live news, whether you could use satellite imagery to predict different indicators for the economy. So I think that part, there's a lot of room there to apply AI on alternative data in both the hedge fund and high frequency trading space. I think that's worth exploring. And some other areas like languages is also something I'm very passionate about. Perhaps a startup that enables translation in real time, or some hardware that's very easy to use that allows the customer to go to Japan, enter Starbucks, and say what they want to order in English, and then that will in real time translate to Japanese. I think different tools like that, they aren't really deployed, but I think the technology is already there. It just requires the motivation and the exposure to deploy this to different markets.
Yeah. You should have joined the SmartLingo team, and we could have.
Oh yeah.
Know this shit.
Oh yeah. I mean, that sounds like a great opportunity. I'll consider it.
We talked about university application, job application, university course intensity, the value of forming teams in university, the value of entrepreneurship classes in university, as well as startup ideas, startup passions.
Right.
And what do you do for fun? Hong Kong is convenient.
Yeah, I think one interesting part which made me interested in working in languages was also like Stanford's NLP class, which was directly taught by Chris Manning,
Yes,
who is
Chris.
like the top 5 in NLP research in the world. And there are many of these classes at Stanford which are taught by world-renowned professors who are like top in the field. And some of them will. The good thing about taking that NLP class is Chris Manning himself will teach every single lecture. So this was very rare at
It's
Stanford.
amazing. Yeah.
For example, in the computer vision class, Fei Fei Li would come to the first lecture, but Chris Manning would show up to every lecture, right? So that was very different. I think part of that, it's also very interesting in the course where, every 5 slides, he will end up citing himself and his paper.
Yeah.
So that was very interesting. But it also made me realize, how language modeling and how translation is done at, say, large companies like Google, right? For example, you might spend a lot of time researching the bridge between English and French, and also the bridge between English to Chinese. And maybe the English to Chinese is super heavily invested on, and the translation performance is very high. Then, if you want to go from Chinese to French, maybe the smart way would be, first of all, use what you've learned from the Chinese to English leg, and apply that again to French. So I think that part is very interesting. How you can think about different translation, these bridges and how they enhance each other. Um, yeah, I think another part that was interesting is very basic theories in NLP, like how do you tokenize language. I think you definitely want to find some embedding where the word vectors are semantically close to other word vectors, and that's been a problem that's already solved very well. But the thought behind it and the motivation behind it is very interesting. In that it just gave inspiration in how you can use mathematical models to solve problems in languages.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Love it.
Cool.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, David. It was
Yeah.
a pleasure.
Nice. Great. Thanks, Ron,
Yeah.
for doing the interview.
Yeah. Any quick questions for
And
me? Or
let's see. Any quick questions? So, how is SmartLingo doing?
oh, it's we're iterating for a bit and then try to pivot, but then we're not really investing a ton of time on it right now because a few reasons. One, we realized that distribution for education tools to public schools could be a big challenge because especially for ed tech tools, a lot of times you really need like on-site people to help you install those tools, and then you gotta win trust school by school. It's like there's less about network effect here. There's more about like in-person sales as well as technical support. So that was one thing about scalability. And second, we realized that yeah, like back then when we started SmartLingo, it was when ChatGPT just came out. Like we built this tool like a month after ChatGPT was out, because like after ChatGPT was out, like the productivity for amateur engineers like me got boosted by 20%, by 20x. So I could build things like really quick. We launched this tool like in 2-3 weeks, and then we started iterating with some schools. But later you realize that there's not a lot of moat because like anybody can build a wrapper around OpenAI. So later on, we actually started to think about this idea that's these days are very common, which is RAG. So like you can put in these like teaching materials. For example, a Chinese teacher in Australia or a French teacher in Canada who would teach like kids from age 6 to 12. They probably have a curriculum there. Like there's a standard examinations in these two education systems. So you might want to like retrieve information from these teaching materials and then tailor the content that you will share with the students, which will be more fun and tuned towards kids with a younger age. So the RAG idea that we had were sort of discovered through talking to these like real use cases, but we didn't proceed because there are some logistic reasons too. Uh, yeah, we're just not
Mm.
proceeding right at the moment. But it's still we still have some fans. Like I met this YouTuber who's an American who's a professor at University of Tokyo in Japan. He still commented in my video and he say like, "Oh, we still think this is a great idea. If you want to continue to proceed, let me know." So we still get some fans. But
Wow.
yeah, if you're interested, we can continue to talk about this.
Nice. And
But yeah.
how do you choose which schools and how do you reach out to them?
Oh, so I was just reaching out to the high school that I was attending for my high school,
Mm.
and then also some friends in Canada who just introduced me to their high school. Because apparently I don't know, somehow like schools in Australia and Canada, they're like so nice. They still remain connected with their students, especially like people who go all over the world. They want to know what's going on in your life. So when you
Right.
go back to them and talk to them, be like, "Hey, we built this tool." They're like, "Yeah, sure." Like they just let, I don't know, like 10 teachers tried our tools or something, and yeah, it was fun.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah,
Cool.
cool. All right,
Nice.
thanks
Anything?
for
How do we close this? I mean, I don't know.
yeah. We can close this.
Well, I guess I'll see you guys next time
Yeah, see you
on
soon.
Sean's stories.
All right,
Yeah,
bye.
follow Sean's stories.
Yeah, we're gonna go see Jensen now. Yeah,
All right, we're gonna go see Jensen
Jensen.
Huang from NVIDIA.
All right,
See you guys.
see you soon.